I have two, and they're brothers, and so they're nutty.
Good afternoon. While we wait for everyone to log on and join us, I just want to introduce myself and the panelists and outline how today's discussion will unfold. My name is Michael McLear, and I'm a 25-year fire service veteran. I'm also the president of Escape Incorporated, a nonprofit organization that provides safe, effective, and economical fire and life safety training to children and adults of all ages. And I'm the former president of the Michigan State Firemen's Association. Now to introduce the topic and the National Volunteer Fire Council. Thank you to everyone for joining us for what I think will be a very interesting discussion about winter fire safety and how to engage and educate your community about this important topic during a pandemic. The holidays have traditionally been a time for fire departments to engage with the communities they serve regarding fire safety, but COVID-19 has of course posed some serious challenges. Today's live discussion is brought to you by the National Volunteer Fire Council, and before we begin, I just want to give a brief overview of the NVFC and then introduce the panelists. The NVFC is the leading nonprofit membership association representing the interests of the volunteer fire, EMS, and rescue services. Its mission is to provide a unified voice for volunteer fire and EMS organizations. You can learn more about their programs and initiatives by visiting www.nvfc.org. Now to introduce our panelists. I'm joined today by Teresa Neal, Fire Program Specialist and a 17-year veteran of the United States Fire Administration. Andrea Vastas, the Senior Director of Public Education at the National Fire Protection Association, and Blaze Harris, a fire and life safety educator at the Rocky Mount, North Carolina Fire Department. This discussion will last about an hour depending on how many questions we receive. I have some questions in front of me already to start the discussion that I'll be asking our panelists, but we're also taking questions from you, our audience. If you do have any, please write them in the comments under this video. We may not get to everyone's question, so if that's the case, please send your question or questions in an email to National Volunteer Fire Council Communications Coordinator Matthew Odom at matthew@nvfc.org. We'll also put his email in the video description. So now the first question for all of our panelists. There are a lot of fire prevention and safety messages to introduce to the public as we head into the winter months, such as the increased fire risk from heating devices, the risk of carbon monoxide poisoning, holiday fire safety, winter storms, and safety when it comes to using candles and generators. How do you package these messages in a way that resonates with the public without overwhelming them? How about if we start with Teresa Neal first?
Thanks, Michael. Well, I really think one of the ways to do it is to just break it up into the months when it becomes that is where, the topic is most important. So for December, really focus on, candle safety and your decoration safety, those types of things. Then wait until you move into, you might throw in some heating, but wait until you move into January to really hit that heating and CO so that people can start sharing those messages before we get to the most bitter part, usually in end of January, beginning of February. If you try to give them all the messages at one time, we all get overloaded, and it's Christmas time, it's Christmas and everybody's excited about that, but they also, as we've said before, we have COVID. And so I think we have to minimize our messaging, not give them too many messages, and try to work together. If you can work together with people in your community that are also putting out messages so that you're all saying the same thing at the same time. Maybe that, hit people at it from different angles, all with the same message, and they'll start to understand it. I think Andrea probably knows better than me, but that there's so many times that somebody can hear a message before they will actually act on it. I can't remember the exact number, but there are, and so you want to keep on saying those most important messages over and over again, instead of giving them all 25 of the messages. Give them the most important ones and then send them back to your website, your whatever you need to let them find out more information if that's what they want to do.
That's great advice, Teresa. Thank you. Andrea, now we'd like to turn this over to you and see what you have to share with our viewers.
Sure. So I'll build on that a little bit. And, right. And so when you look at times of the year that something is more likely to happen, you want to get ahead of it, right? And so that's part of the prevention piece of it. And when we're packaging things, chunking it out, right? And so if we're going to talk about heating and we want to say, okay, what is the preventative piece? Get your furnace and your boiler maintenance once a year and make sure you have CO alarms, right? And so what are the calls to action? Clean it and have a way to detect it. So just 2 calls to action, very simple. You've given them something that's a little easier to do. Same thing with, decorating for the season. Candles are great, but here's what happens. And what is the alternative, right? So it's not just about don't use candles or, something, give them an alternative. And we are, obviously big promoters of the LED candles. First of all, they last a lot longer. They're not putting smoke into your home, and they aren't going to burn your house down. And so those are the kinds of ways that we do it. But again, I think it's always great when you can package it as here's a thing to do to prevent it. Here's a thing to do to respond to it.
More great advice. Thank you, Andrea. Excellent. Blaze, would you like to add to this topic?
I'm gonna try to. They pretty much covered everything I was going to say. I think one of the biggest things, and I think Teresa touched on it earlier, is repetition and getting the message out. One of the things that we try to do, some of the things that we see, like say candles, for instance, that's something that we see through all year. It's not just during the winter time. People try to burn candles all the time. So we remind people, okay, just be mindful of when you use candles, how to put them out. And we, like Andrea said, we suggest the flameless candles when it comes to, being safe with those. But it's also different things that we see, like North Carolina weather is crazy. So you might have, 30 degrees one day, but then the next day is going to be 70. So we are mindful of the things we do when we're teaching people. And then we have flooding. So we have flooding and hurricanes. So we talk about generators anyway. So it's just pretty much reinforces the messages that we're already talking about. And we just reaffirming, just be mindful of these things during the winter months as well.
Great advice, Blaze. Excellent. Well, thank you, panelists. That was awesome. The second question that I have for all of you, are there increased fire safety concerns this year as we head into the holidays and the winter, especially due to the pandemic? Teresa.
Well, I think just as we've seen earlier with COVID, more people, we're at home more. And so we're in our homes, we're cooking more. Now we are introducing the heating issues and having those, have the heat on or have a fireplace going or a wood stove. So I think that there are more concerns just because, we've always seen an increase in fatalities through the winter months. People are just home and doing more things at home. And with COVID, I just think that's going to be so much more prominent that people are trying to have maybe smaller, maybe more often in smaller gatherings. Instead of having all the family over on one day, you might have them over on different days. So you're kind of spreading out your risk, over more days because you're cooking more, you're making those great big meals several times instead of just one time so that you can see each other, because we're trying to not have so many people together at one time. So I think that's something that we have to think about. The other thing is that I know we've had a discussion with NFPA earlier in the month, and one of the things that they brought up is that, we have to, what Andrea said about having somebody come in and clean your systems and check your fireplace or check your HVAC system. a lot of people don't want to have somebody come in because they're afraid they're going to bring something in. But, CDC has guidelines. We found those that about asking the people, you can come in, you need to be masked, is your company testing? Is your company, at least doing temperature checks to make sure their people are healthy before you bring them in? So I think that because people are afraid of having workers come in to do work, that can also increase their risk during this time frame, because those systems need to be, they've been shut off for, 8 months, maybe, at least in our area where I live, and they need to be checked to make sure everything's still okay. And if we're not doing that, then we're just elevating the risk of having a fire or a near miss over these winter holidays.
Great advice, Teresa. Thank you. Andrea, I'd like to move on to you, if I may.
So I'll be a little bit of a buzzkill here, unfortunately. Alcohol. Alcohol sales rose something like 60% in the pandemic, and I probably accounted for 50 of it. But the reality is people are home more, they're drinking more, they definitely are drinking and eating more. We have kind of this perfect storm. We have longer hurricane season. We're off the wildfires. Dare I say, presidential election that has left a lot of people having a lot of issues with each other. And so I think when we think about, will this year be any deadlier than last year? That's remain to be seen. We definitely knew that we saw more cooking fires in the first round of the pandemic. We definitely saw our fire service going to more lift assists because they couldn't call their, son or daughter or neighbor to come over and lift them. And I think as we go into this next round, we've got a lot of schools that are now shutting down after Thanksgiving. They're going to shut down through the end of December. So we're going to have a lot more people back in again. And it's really easy to forget what it was like the first time around when you were all back in, right? And so this is why, and then add, alcohol and all the other stuff with it. And so this is why we have to just, again, work hard in our communities to put those messages out that, again, feel so, elementary. We should remind you to do this, but we do have to remind people to do this. And again, like Blaze and Teresa were saying, frequently and in a variety of ways. It can't be a tweet or a social media post and you're done. It's got to be done in a variety of ways.
Excellent advice, Andrea. Thank you. Blaze.
I think one of the things that we forget about is, well, no, you guys said it. We're talking about the pandemic and alcohol. Nobody wants to be inside. We're limited to how many people we can have inside. So what are people going to do? They're going to go outside and do things. So fire pits, bonfires, doing all these things so you can have more people around so you can actually gather around, and it's socially distant when it comes to these things. But when alcohol is involved and you had a big old fire outside too, not a good combination. So those are different things that we have to think about. When we think about the winter, we're just thinking about, okay, let's go inside and heating and chimneys and all of that stuff. But we don't think about what it's like outside. We have so many different things that can happen once you do these bonfires and people not using the fire pit safely, and what kind of accelerant are they using to try to get the fire, especially if it's cold outside, if it's been raining or anything in the woods wet. What are they putting on these fires to keep these fires going? And then all of a sudden you create a whole nother set of problems going through. So just being mindful of the different types of things that we actually are trying to get people to be concerned with, not just the inside, but outside of the home too, when it comes to the winter months.
More great advice, Blaze. Thank you very much. Excellent. Thank you, panelists. Let's move on to our third question. Cooking was the theme for this year's Fire Prevention Week. How does that relate to holiday and winter fire safety? Teresa.
Well, wasn't NFPA great when they gave us this theme this year, because we can just bring it all the way through the holidays. So I'll leave some of the other cooking for the other two panelists, but I'll just talk about Thanksgiving. So Thanksgiving's coming. We're all excited about Thanksgiving. and all the cooking that we want to do. I'll just do the plug for turkey fryers. You know, if you're going to fry your turkey, which I do mine, so, you know, I have an electric one, but still, you know, it's a great way to have turkey. It's different. It's not like when your mom made your dry turkey that you were trying to force down. You know, it's great, but you have to be very, very careful with that. You know, if you have one of those outdoor turkey fryers, it needs to be moved away from your, not only from your house, but from the eaves, from trees, everywhere. It needs to be on a sturdy surface. Bruce Bausch, one of the, my colleague at US Fire Administration, brought up this point to me. He said, you know, before people start talking about putting that turkey in there, you know, especially when it's one of those outdoor ones and you're filling it up with oil, why don't they take that pot and fill it with water and then see how far the water raises when they put the turkey in? Then they'll know what level to put the oil when they go in and do that. Had never thought of that. That's brilliant. That's a great idea for us to, you know, just to test it with water a couple days before Thanksgiving, just to make sure that you know what level you need to fill up the fryer with. Be very careful because a lot of those fryers, they don't have external controls to tell you how hot things are. You want to keep children away. You want to keep your pets away. You need to have somebody who's there, stays with it the entire time, and preferably if they're not imbibing a bunch of alcoholic beverages at that time too, so that they'll be on it and they'll be, you know, able to react quickly. So just keep some of those tips in mind when you're using a turkey fryer. And I will allow my colleagues to talk more about the other ways of doing cooking.
Great, Teresa, thank you. Andrea.
So I think this is where, you know, obviously, and, you know, and it's, again, this isn't like never have your glass of wine. It's just hang on until the bulk of the work is done and then go enjoy yourself. You know, we're not going to be hosting as many big events anymore, but even so, you're having people walk in, right? So things get distracted. So I think of the plan ahead things. One, make sure your oven is clean before you start the cooking, because you're going to be cooking more and for longer, which means there's more chance that if there's something at the bottom of your oven that it can catch fire, right? So basic stuff, cleaning out your oven in advance. I too am really thrilled that this year, you know, Serve Fires in the Safety in the Kitchen blends so nicely into holidays and social gatherings, because cooking is such an important part of how we socialize with each other. And, you know, it's all about, you know, I'm Greek, it's all about the food, right? So this is what, you know, we live for this. So how do you think ahead of time? We know that Thanksgiving and Christmas are the top 2 days that fire departments will show up at your house because of a cooking fire. You know, when we make that saying, instead of a, you know, you want a visit from Santa, not a visit from your fire department. So it's some of those basic things, designating an area so that when people start walking into your house and they're like, where do I put this? Where do I put this? Designate that area so there aren't a bunch of things that are now on the stove and people are putting packaged things on the stove. And, you know, I think and also sort of designate who's really going to be at the stove and the oven. I kind of like put like a force field around myself when people come over, like, this is my spot, everybody stay over there. Because then when there's so many people, everybody thinks someone's paying attention to it, and then nobody's paying attention to it. So that's a big piece of the cooking fires is, you know, it's so easy to get distracted. It's so easy to just, you know, put your guard down. I'll let Blaze continue because you've responded to a lot of these.
One or two. One or two. But echo what you guys are talking about. It's the same thing. It's the repetition. It's the constant things. If we stay with the basics, teaching those things and make sure that everybody is aware of, you know, the safety issues. You know, turn your handles to the side. You know, 3 feet away from the oven. At my house, well, not at my house, at my grandma's house, we cook. I'm not Greek, but it's still all about the food at my house too. And my grandma's like, this is a one butt kitchen. So, you know, you can't have too many chefs in a little kitchen when it comes to these things, because the more hands in the pot, the more possibilities it is for something bad to happen. So, and then not only that, some people like to prepare things the night before, and then especially they cooking it late into the evening, and they forget, you know, they might forget to turn the stoves off. And that's one of the things we talk about. Don't cook when you are tired. Don't cook when you're under the influence, or cook when you have when you're taking medicine and all these things. And, you know, just because it's the winter time, it doesn't mean that those things need to stop. So continue to be mindful of those things. Don't cook when you're tired. Don't cook, you know, if you have your medicine. Don't cook if you've been drinking. And just be sure that you are still following the same guidelines that we've talked about all year long. And if we continue to repeat all these same messages, then it should stick. That's one of the things that I do when I write my songs. It's always repetition, whether it be close before you doze, you hear that over and over and over again. Get low and goes over and over and over again. So those are the things. So we put those messages out to the people and get it to the point where they get tired of hearing about it. So that way they hear it, this stuff goes off. Okay, this is second nature to me. Smoke alarm goes off, we're going outside to our meeting place. You know, if we have an oven fire, keep the door closed, turn the oven off. Okay, if we can't put it out, call 911. Make sure everybody's outside. So repetition.
Great advice, panelists. Excellent. Thank you. All right, question number 4. Are there certain topics that resonate better than others, and at what times of the year or what months? Teresa.
Well, definitely around holidays, you're going to have different types of messaging, you know, for Christmas, where you're really focusing on, you know, the Christmas trees and your decorations and keeping them safe and keeping them away from heat sources and watering that tree every day. Those are things that are very important for December. You know, we try to, but I think what Blaze said is that sometimes we focus so much on those new messages that we forget that all those other messages haven't gone out the window. Those basics of, do you have your smoke alarms? Are they working? Are you testing them? Have you and your family talked about what you're going to do if you hear the smoke alarm? And have you practiced it? Because you might think that you can open the window and get out easily, but have you ever done it? When you wake up in the middle of the night because the alarm's going off and you know, you're afraid and, you know, shocked by it, you may not be able to react the way that you think you're going to react. And so, or if you wake up and there's smoke, you know, what are you going to do? And so it is important to also always hit those things. We always call them the essentials, you know, about having working smoke alarms, testing your smoke alarms, knowing your home escape plan, letting people know, you know, you might have more people over during this time, during the winter, might have people staying over, you know, do they know how to get out? What if something goes on? Do they know what to do while they're in their home? We kind of forget those things because we just take them for granted. There's the doors, you know, my house isn't that big and there's 2 doors, but there's lots of times that we can't use those doors. And, you know, our fatality reports for, you know, people dying in a year's time, whatever, tells you that those smoke alarms, the escape plans, those things are so important. And while we are focusing on new things because of the time of year, we can't forget those. We can't forget those basics that we always go back to.
Great advice, Teresa. Andrea.
Sure. So, you know, I think one of the greatest pieces of our success in reducing fires overall is also now our confounder, because so it's not top of mind for people, which means we have to be really careful of what we're saying and when we're saying it so that it is resonating with someone, it's relating to their life at the moment and what's on their mind in the moment, right? We really want to get it connected to what's going on with them. And, you know, when we think about certain, you know, we look at the data, things like half of all home electrical fires involve home wiring or lighting equipment. And the majority of electrical fire deaths happen from November to March, right? When we have less daylight and we're using more electricity and we're using more lighting and lighting implements. So, you know, there's taking those kinds of things and then there's applying it to what's going on in the world. I know we talk a lot about Christmas and not everybody celebrates Christmas. So I want to be really careful that when you're putting your messages together about Christmas trees, you know, recognize that there are other things going on in the home, but Christmas trees are a big deal. And as soon as Christmas is over, you should be talking about proper disposal of that Christmas tree and not letting it stay with the lights on, dried out, with the risk of it now catching fire. Those are, you know, kind of think about what's going on in someone's life and what they are kind of doing in that mindset. They're doing their post-holiday sale shopping. Well, stock up on your smoke alarms if they're over 10 years old. What are your New Year's resolutions for your home safety and for your family? So there are definitely, you take the data of what's going on, and then you think about what's going on in people's lives. And then I think the one thing you can never underestimate is the power of a local event. And you're not looking to, capitalize on someone else's loss or tragedy, but you do need to use those stories as examples, because when people see things that happen to people like them, they take notice. And all of a sudden, everybody starts, I use this example a lot in my church when a woman who was older and very loved person ended up dying from breast cancer. And all of a sudden, the conversation of all the older ladies was, oh, I haven't had a mammogram. What? I didn't think I really need one that badly. And now, that it just changed the conversation. And so, we talk about, every year in the US and in the Canada, blah, 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 these things happen. But you have the ability when you're out there, boots on the ground, to use the local stories and the local data and the, take advantage of what's going on, in the world in that moment, to bring the issue forth. And again, chunk it out, small bits of information at a time.
That's great advice, Andrea. Thank you. Blaze.
Well, again, I'm coming at the tail end, all this great information that I already have. Just like, man, making me work for it. No, I think the biggest thing is the amount of fires and stuff that we do have, that we do see in our area. And I think letting our communities know, okay, this is the biggest time where these things happen. So let's be more mindful. Let's be, pay more attention to detail when it comes to the things that we do around it. Yeah. We have Christmas and Thanksgiving coming up. Yeah, we're going to cook more. Yeah, we're going to do these things more, but y'all are going to be at home a whole lot more during the holiday break. Your kids may be cooking, you're going to be cooking. You're going to be doing all these different types of things. So just be mindful. You're going to have your heating appliances to the side. Do you know what to do when you have those things out? Do you know you need to keep things that are flammable 3 feet away from these things? What about the people who have kerosene heaters? Those are big things still down here, and people, okay, well, we might not have, electrical heat, but we got this kerosene heater and we can still be mindful of those things. Okay. And what are those things usually put in the middle of the floor, and people walk right by and trip on them in the middle of the night, So many different types of things that people need to be mindful of. And then what about the folks who don't have a heating appliance, who don't have, the kerosene heater or a fireplace? What are they going to use? They're going to use their stove. They're going to use their oven to try to keep warm. And we tell people, we try to remind them, hey, that's just for cooking. That's another thing. We don't want you to try to heat your house using the stove. And those are those messages we're trying to do. It's all about safety. So many things can go wrong if you leave your door open like that. Things flying inside, paper, all these other flammables. What happens if you trip and, you stick your hand in there? All these different types of things that people don't think about when it comes to the winter months. So just being mindful and just being more diligent in the way that we put our information out to the people.
Great advice, Blaze. Excellent. Got one more question here for the entire panelist group here. As the year winds down, what should public educators do to plan for 2021? What will we see more or less of? Teresa.
Well, I think we need to start, we always have to think about social media and what we can put out there and how we can I would say a lot of times you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You should really, look at people who are just like you, who are doing wonderful things out there, and share their information as well. Sharing their videos, they can go viral, and those are some great videos. I remember years and years ago in Fresno, they made those great home fire sprinkler videos, and they were awesome. And we used them for years of telling people about home fire sprinklers because they were funny and relatable and that type of thing. So I would say don't worry about recreating everything. Check out some of the people. Check out Blaze. He does great work. He has things that you can use. NFPA has it. USFA has videos that you can use, and on your social media, you can use them on your website, any of those things. And so I would say don't think that you have to do everything all yourself. See what's out there. And also, I would just also say, try to plan ahead a little bit. Sit down and if you're a public educator, sit down and kind of sketch out the year and think about the type of things, the different areas, or in the spring and the winter, what are the things that you should be focusing on? And maybe start to brainstorm people in your community, organizations that do like-minded things. If you're talking about seniors and fall safety, or that's what your data shows, that's what you're going out for a lot, then maybe talk about Meals on Wheels and seeing if you can do a partnership with them. If you live in a big metro area and your fire department has I guess they call them the old firefighter organization. So the guys who are no longer riding the truck and they've kind of retired and moved on, but that is their passion. That's what they did their whole lives. How can we work with them to get some of the information out that we want people to hear? And also remember that sometimes you're not the best person to give the message. Something that's hard to hear. Sometimes it's better from other people than for you. We all want to be able to give messages and give tips, but sometimes it's better if they hear it from, as a public educator, if you're not in the fire service, but you're connected to it, maybe it's better to hear it from a firefighter, or somebody who's been a firefighter, or maybe your message is a great message, but maybe the fire marshal really in your state needs to be putting that out because you all are seeing things, or your mayor needs to put it out. Start brainstorming some of those things so that when you plan out the next year, you already have some ideas about who you can go to, who you can partner with, who you can connect with. And, NFPA and USFA, we're always here to help. We both have there's staff on both organizations that love to connect and help you to kind of think things through or nail down some ideas or those types of things. So don't forget about us when you're planning as well.
Great advice. Thank you, Teresa. Andrea.
So Blaze, do you want to go first? Because I feel bad you're always at the end.
No, look, I am used to my place. I got this. I'm gonna go based off what you say. I'm gonna go wherever you go, I'm gonna go somewhere different. I got it.
Cool. So I think one of the things that we're going to see more of in 2021, and it's more around the social environment that we're entering into, is we're going to continue to be combating misinformation as relates to the pandemic. We're going to start to see, traction in certain areas, and then it's just going to cause more people to say, I don't know what to think anymore. I don't know who to believe anymore. I don't know what's going on. And that means that, as for the majority of the people who are, listening to this today, and most of you are fire service, you're a really trusted member of the community. And I think that's, one thing to really take to heart. And, it means that you're the first ones to see things often before anyone else does. I think a lot about the older adults and falls. Fire service sees it first. People aren't always honest with their doctors when they say, oh, have you fallen? They're like, no, I'm fine. But differently because you're the ones picking them up over and over again. So I think that really making sure that you're aligning yourselves with really credible sources of information, that collaboration with people in your community that are the trusted sources right? And it's whether it's the Meals on Wheels or a particular community center, your places of worship, you know, think about your religious leaders who can really ally with you. I think what we're going to see more of is more people working together to get something done in that way, because we just are spread so thin, and because we are really, you know, working uphill against a lot of the misinformation and fear, just out and out fear of, you know, things. And so again, then the fire safety falls down again the list of priorities for me to think about, which makes it even more important to package it in there.
Excellent advice, Andrea. Thank you. Blaze.
I don't think that virtual learning is going to go anywhere anytime soon. I think we're going to see way more of that. And I think one of the things as educators, we are going to have to continue to adapt. We're going to have to continue to adapt and have to modify the certain things that we do as far as getting information out to the public. You know, I think as much as I would love to be able to do, you know, a puppet show, you know, in a school system, or I would love to go to assisted living facilities and doing presentations. Right now is not the best time to do it. I mean, it's a big safety issue for everyone. You know, so we're going to have to, like Teresa said earlier, use the resources that we have and use the things that people are doing all across the country and how they're doing these things, whether it be using Canva or using YouTube or Facebook Live or TikTok. Even TikTok is using those different types of things and using different platforms to get the messaging out to different people. I am not reinventing the wheel on anything. Everything that I use, I get it from the NFPA. You know, as far as the manual goes, everything I put in every song that I do or every video I do, it comes straight from there. And the stuff that I'm seeing from not just across North Carolina, but just across the country, what people are doing, people are adapting and overcoming. That's what firefighters do. That's what we do. And I think that we're going to continue to see great things from the fire service when it comes to public education. Just keep doing what you're doing, keep doing like we've been doing. And we're going to come out like we always have. We're going to come out, we're going to go in, see what's going on, and we're going to handle it like we always do. So.
Well, and I'd like to add, Blaze, the NFPA educational desk reference is really the foundation that all fire and life safety educators and anyone in community outreach should really engage with. I do believe that that's going to be updated in 2021. We've had some previous conversations on that, and you can access that for free. nfpa.org/EMAC, and it should be on everyone's desk and easily accessible. So whether we're out in the community, whether we're educating our seniors, whether our older adults, whether we're actually engaging with our media partners, it has all of those talking points that were compiled by experts from across the country. So I appreciate you referencing that. And it really is the foundation in any of us and for any of us out there in engaging and connecting with our community. So excellent. The next question, and I have a few questions coming in from our audience, and we will get to those momentarily, but the next question is directed to both Teresa and Andrea. The National Fire Protection Association and the United States Fire Administration work together on the annual Put a Freeze on Winter Fires campaign, which runs from December through February. Andrea and Teresa, could you talk a little about this? Let's go with Teresa first.
I was going to say, let's go with Andrea first, just because I keep going first.
Sure. Andrea.
Well, you have to fill me in, Teresa, because the start of the campaign precedes me, but it's a really great opportunity for, you know, we love to work together, first of all, you know, and whenever Teresa and I have an opportunity, we're just so thrilled to do it. But really, this is a great way to consolidate sort of the everything you need to know and what you need to use for your public education efforts. For those months of December to March, where again, right, we know we have decoration fires, cooking fires, when people are going to start using heating more, things like winter storms and proper use of generators, So there's a number of topics that, just every year at that time come up. So putting it together in a campaign means sort of one-stop shopping for the public educator. And we are doing the same thing at the same time so that we're amplifying the message and we're, reiterating messages and we're spreading out to people we otherwise wouldn't reach. So we're doing a lot of good cross promotion work at that time.
Excellent,
yeah, like
Andrea.
You said, we're really just trying to take those topics and say the same thing. Like we both spoke about, or all three of us spoke about earlier, is hitting people in different ways. And so if they're seeing it from each one of us, and then when our followers are retweeting it or sharing it, then it helps us to be able to just keep hitting people over and over again with those good, solid messages about how to keep themselves safer during the winter time. We know fatalities go up in the winter for all different types of reasons. And so as we focus on decorating and the trees and the cooking and heating and CO and electrical and winter fire storms, those are those areas that we can say the same messages over and over again and really help people to understand how they can be safer. They can do things to make themselves safer. That's what we want to do. We'd want them to not think that fires just happen and that we don't know anything, we don't know why they happen. Usually there's a human element involved with that. And so we need to let them know that they are their own advocates. They can take some responsibility and make themselves safer. They don't have to be a victim to a fire when they can be prevented. And so we really want to teach people those types of things and to just give them those easy steps to follow to make themselves safer.
And I think that's the key to it is the materials are really simple. They're a lower literacy, a lot of pictures, infographics, there's data in this one. These tend to have a lot of data because it's that did you know? If people don't think there's a risk, often the numbers do help them, conceive that this actually is a risk for me, right? And then the call to action. So when we're talking about heating appliances, the call to action is never plug it into an extension cord, always plug it into a direct wall outlet, and keep it 3 feet from anything that can catch fire, right? And so we might put a little statistic out there about, space heaters and the number of fires they cause and that sort of thing. And then there's the call to action that accompanies it.
Excellent. Very good. And we will have links to both the NFPA and USFA websites. The public education tab is the key in either discipline so that we can make sure we direct people right to those messages and connect the needs and resources together. So we'll have that online for everyone. Thank you both. Okay, the next series of questions are for Blaze. Blaze, what are some of the biggest issues you see in your community when dealing with heating and winter fire safety?
Well, the biggest thing that we see, it still goes back to the cooking. Cooking is still the biggest thing for us in our community here in Rocky Mountain. Just being sure that we try to stay on top of it. We had 31 cooking fires last year just in our town, but we also have chimney fires where people don't, take the time to, hey, let's clean the flue, get all this stuff done. Or, I think we had one fire with that last year, and then we had 6 heating and cooling unit fires last year. And so we try to remind people, hey, get your stuff maintained and don't get it from the guy from down the street who can come and look at it and say, oh, I can take care of this for you. Look at it, no problem. Get somebody who that's their job, get somebody who's certified to check, who's certified to maintain your heating system. And you get the people who are, that's what they get paid to do is to clean chimneys and be sure that everything is safe. Don't try to, cut corners, because it could mean the difference between life and death when it comes to these different types of things. So those are the biggest issues still that we see around here.
Excellent. What are you doing to prepare your community for the winter months and keep people safe?
Well, we have a really strong social media presence. So we are continuing to push information out through via our Facebook page, social, Instagram, and Twitter as well. Working on a new heating and winter safety song. So be looking for that in a couple of weeks. Yeah. So trying to get all that stuff done. So that's one of the biggest ways that we put information out. And one of the things that we were doing back during Fire Prevention Week was floating along the idea of sending messages out with the bills from the city. You know, say if the light bill goes out, slide some messaging in there as well, so people can get the information about, you know, what's going on with the winter and what they can do to be safe.
Very good. And lastly, how will you continue to promote heating and winter fire safety throughout and during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Business as usual. Keep doing the things we've been doing because it's been effective so far. And we're going to continue to try to get into the schools and work with the schools and try to talk with the kids and stuff about what they can do. Also try to put the information out to their parents as well, you know, when it comes to it, and continue to use our social media presence right now when it comes along with all kinds of safety.
Super. Thanks, Blaze. We have a question from the audience here since we're talking about social media. So this is for all of the panelists. Other than social media, what are other ways to educate and interact, given that many communities can't host in-person events or training for their communities? Who would like to give some input and some recommendations on this question from our audience member?
You want to rock, paper, scissors for it?
I'll give a couple ideas. You know, a lot of local libraries are still doing a lot of virtual events. My local library did a trivia night, for instance. So if you're interested in still doing some kind of presentation, you know, like 10 minutes, and you want to put something out there, work with maybe your local library and they can hook you up with doing a live Facebook event, right? Or some kind of, you know, webinar, podcast, something. And then they can also help you with promoting it through your community. So that's one way of, I mean, it's going to be virtual, right? Is things like that. And so definitely using those kinds of things. I think the other thing is, and we saw a lot of this during Fire Prevention Week, is partnering with some of your local delivery services, takeout restaurants and places like that, supermarkets. And, you know, you have your physical materials. At that point, you plug in the physical materials so that it's part of what they're bringing home with them. So I'll stop there and let Blaze go on and continue that.
That was my answer. I can't add nothing to that. That was perfect. You knew what was gonna come with that one. There ain't much I can add to that one, Andrew. Come on.
I think another thing that we can also think about is if you have materials for younger children, you know, the coloring books or those types of things, maybe go buy some of the daycares that are open and give those materials to them. You might not be able to get into the home anymore because of it, but you could do your home safety checklist, a smaller version of it, along with the coloring book for the kid, and leave them at the daycare so that when the parents are picking them up, they get the information that you want them to have, just kind of thinking them through maybe 4 steps to being safer at home. You know, don't give them too many because they'll just go in the garbage can. Give them 4, you know, steps to be safer. But then you're also providing them with that coloring book for their children that has those important fire safety messages in them. And will at least give them a conversation starter at home, those types of things. You know, I was going to say, like with Andrew, if anything that's doing delivery, it would be a great idea to try to partner with them, that you can put a flyer in their materials, even if it's just a flyer to remind people that the fire department's there and that you care, and that you're hoping that they're doing all right, you know, just something to remind them, because maybe that will also, some people are feeling pretty shut in, and, disjointed in this society. You can't see your friends and those types of things. Just, I think it pays dividends for us to make that extra step and say, and maybe drop off of flyers at a church or something like that and say, could you hand these out when you hand out your bulletins? Could put these in, and it could be nothing more than just saying, you know, your local fire department is thinking of you. We hope that you are doing well, you know, those types of things. And I think that that would pay dividends for the future when we want to do other things and we want to, you know, maybe get into the churches or whatever, get where people are going, so that they will start thinking about fire safety in a different way.
And I actually do have something to add to that. So I was thinking about when you talked about the coloring books for the young adults, they're also coloring things for older adults as well. So we can still use those same things to get those messages out, especially if we say we wanted to deal with assisted living. Obviously, we can't go inside and deal with them. Well, we could still give those pages where they can actually color and do things with the safety messages on them as well. And so, like you said, just let them know that, hey, the fire department is here. We are caring. We do care. We are thinking about you all. You know, here's something from us to let you know that we are thinking about you.
Yeah, you know, it's funny you say this because we created an adult coloring sheet this year, and it's done very well because, you know, it's a good stress management technique. But we actually found out that there's a senior center that's using our find the safety things in the pictures, you know, like the pictures that you have to find the battery and the this, they're using it as brain games.
Nice.
You know, think about that is, you know, right, as our bodies are atrophying, sitting home, we're trying to keep our brains engaged. So there are lots of ways to use this material and people to work through who can get it out there for you rather than you having to go reach each person.
Great advice, friends. Excellent. I do have one more audience member who has posed a great question, so I'm going to open this up to the panel. What's a great video or site to go to get videos to put up on our website, meaning this individual's website, his agency's website, and Facebook site in relation to winter fire safety?
Well, USFA has a YouTube channel. So if you go, I mean, you can go find them on our website, but you can also go to YouTube and look at US Fire, look up US Fire, and we have all of our videos on our YouTube channel. You're welcome to use anything that you want with there.
Great, Teresa.
Rocky Mount Fire Department has a YouTube page as well, and that's where all of the videos that I've done are up there. You can tell, you know, from the beginning where I started and where I have, you know, upgraded.
This is how it started, and this is how it's going.
This is how it is now. So, so there are plenty of videos out there that you can use as well. So feel free.
Yeah, and NFPA has a kids YouTube channel, a regular YouTube channel, and then really for us, the best place is to go to sparky.org. So anything kid or family related, go to sparky.org and sparkyschoolhouse.org because we have the videos. And then, you know, your best bet, the clearinghouse is nfpa.org/education. And then that'll get you your list of what we have for tip sheets and videos and all those kinds of resources.
Perfect. Well, we have time for one more audience question. This one just came in. Are there resources that combine all of those holiday safety messages, winter safety messages, that also include COVID messaging as well?
So on the NFPA pages, we have landing pages for the put a freeze on winter fires. We're actually in the process of updating all the statistics and the information now, so it'll be ready for the December launch. And then that way you have everything that you need right there for the put a freeze on winter fires. And that's the other thing that we've been doing is taking a look at all of our materials to see where we might need to add in additional messaging as relates to COVID and additional modifications. So working on that in that place.
We're working on Lisa Makar, our social media manager, and we're working on messaging so that it combines the two, because we know that people are going to be inside more, and it looks like another spike is happening. And so we need to reinforce all of those messages. I mean, USFA has a COVID suite of pages and that deals with, whatever is the most topical. And I know NFPA has one as well. But we're working to kind of combine those into messages that you can continue to share with your communities.
Yeah. And then nfpa.org/COVID, right? Or coronavirus. Sorry, we actually have a full coronavirus landing page because it deals with building reopenings and codes and inspections and all of those things. And then there's the public education side goes into that as well. Because we have just seen so many different kinds of things. What do you do for fire drills in a school when people have to stay 6 feet apart? And, there's been a lot that we've had to accommodate for and balance priorities because of COVID.
And we will probably borrow from NFPA and a USFA. Like I said, no need to reinvent the wheel.
Excellent.
That's why it's all there for you to use it.
That's right. That's right. Well, this has been a really informative day. There's one more resource I'd like to add before we wrap up here. We're just about out of time, but we've got a few more minutes left. Any of the public fire and life safety educators or anyone on today's Facebook Live that is not a member of this closed group on Facebook, it's called Fire Life Safety Educators and Coordinators. That's really a great area that we're bringing all best practices from all across the country. And there's daily dialogue on, hey, I have this problem. And within a few moments, other experts are chiming in and saying, well, I've tried this, I've done this, this has worked out really well. So again, that's Fire Life Safety Educators and Coordinators. We've got some very passionate people that have put that together, and this has really taken off well across the country. It's really a great go-to place. It's on Facebook. It's a closed group. If you just ask to join, one of the administrators will go ahead and welcome you on board. All of us are a part of that group, and there's just some great dialogue going back and forth. All of the panelists, a lot of the things that they've talked about have been shared and continue to be shared in that forum as well. So, well, it looks like that's all the time we have for now. I just want to thank all of our panelists, Teresa Neal, Andrea Vasquez, Blaze Harris, and everyone who joined us, as well as the National Volunteer Fire Council. I think we had a very interesting discussion about winter fire safety and how to engage and educate your community during COVID-19. We'll include in this video's description the links to the websites of the United States Fire Administration, the National Fire Protection Association, and Rocky Mount Fire Department. Just a reminder that if we didn't answer your question, to please email NVFC's communication coordinator, Matthew Odom, at NVFC.org. Let me do that again. Matthew, MATTHEW, at NVFC.org. Again, thank you all for joining us. Please take this information and connect with your community, and we hope that you have a very productive and a safe holiday weekend, holiday season, and a great week. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.